Oh wait, that's way too loud. Holy shit. Okay, now slightly. Okay, this looks good.
Hey, Jules, you have no idea what's in this episode because you're not in it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the intro at least. Can't keep me out of everything.
As if that's the reason. You're just too busy and important.
From dishwasher to international podcast celebrity, VIP zone, gold teeth, Rolls Royce, swag, bitches. What the fuck?
So, while you were actually busy with the real world, I brought in 3 of our other friends to talk about stuff they know about, or they wanted to talk about after listening to a bit of the podcast that we already finished recording and editing up to now. So I can tell you a bit about what's going to be in there, but you haven't heard it yet. I brought in my goat, Gaemmel, who talks about cosplaying and the constructive and deconstructive fandom with me. How do you feel about that?
It's a very good goat, has very nice fur, good hooves.
Top goat.
Top goat. Yes, top.
I also talked to Manu, who is my expert on Toby Fox's Homestar goods and the Undertale soundtrack. And I talked to him about each character's food. And I also spoiled the final song of Bravely Default.
Good job on that. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's not too bad to spoil that game, but I still wanted to warn people about it.
Okay, yeah. Manu's also a great person. He's my side bae.
And Martin, I talked to him about genocide and my favorite fan theory about the game, and just a bunch of other fan stuff.
Yeah, he's also very nice. That fam sure does know how to stay litty.
Okay, this is my first guest.
Hi.
What do you want to be called?
Gaemmel.
That's Gaemmel. She's our goat. I referred to you as goat before in our recordings.
Yes, I heard that.
If you're listening to the YouTube version, here's a photo of her as a regular person. And here's a photo of you as Toriel. You are my first discussion partner who is not Jules. I am woefully underprepared.
Me too.
Basically, I would just first of all like to ask you how you feel about the game by now, 2 years after.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know you are someone who isn't, like me, dedicated to one thing for eternity.
Yeah. I used to be pretty hyped 2 years ago, even though I got in late in terms of our friend group. I mean, you were the first one to recommend it, and I think then Sam played it before me, my boyfriend, and then I got around to playing it after Sam already was well informed. So I also got a head start in terms of things you can do wrong in the game. For example, I'm one of the very few people who did not kill Toriel because Sam told me, and also I needed a lot of help when I was playing it because I'm bad. Like, it's not even an understatement. Like, in any kind of game that requires jump and run and maneuvers. So any kind of game that requires dodging maneuvers, I'm bad at it. I'm just really, really bad. So I needed help with, I think, Undyne I managed on my own, even though it took me an eternity. Metaton, I was completely lost at Metaton, I think. It's, of course, kind of embarrassing sometimes. Like, I don't know if your listeners know that, but Maurice is just good at playing games, like, much better than me and much better than most people. Also because he's kind of just into this whole thing, like, way more than I am. So it's sometimes just embarrassing to have to admit, like, I'm sorry, this might be an okay thing or a nice challenge for you, but this is just frustrating for me after the 15th time, because that's not how I work. So that's something we kind of sometimes get, like, we sometimes crash at that point, I would say. Because it's just a different kind of experience for both of us. Yeah, so anyway, after 2 years, well, I have to say I have cooled, my feelings towards the game have cooled down. now that I've been listening to your podcast, I would kind of like to do it again. Also because I hadn't had a different computer at that time, so I can easily start completely anew, create a new save file. So I would like to do that, but I still feel that it was a pleasant experience to be into this myself, but also to be into this with all of my friends and to be involved in this. Not in the fandom. I don't particularly like the Undertale fandom on the internet. But to be involved with this, with you as a group, and also our first real cosplay group together, and having that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I would say we were pretty fast.
Yeah.
Since we started in November, and cosplay season is spring and summer.
Yeah.
And we basically were done when it was time.
Yeah.
So within 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And we were all done. I guess this is the right time to show people like a group picture.
Yeah, probably.
Not everyone pictured in this will be on this podcast.
Sam, if you can see on the picture, and I suppose you can, Sam, my boyfriend, is our Metaton, and everything Sam touches just turns to fucking gold. It's another frustrating thing, which is also pretty cool, but he can do anything. If it requires to have hands and be good at your hands, to use your hands in a correct way, it's probably something he can do at least decently. But probably above average. So he probably did all of that by himself, but I did most of the stuff by myself. Like I sewed the robe all by myself, almost completely. Or maybe I got advice from Sam. Apart from that, I did the thing myself, so there was a pleasant experience for me, because this is still a piece of cosplay equipment I have done by myself that I'm still pretty happy with, but I got help for the emblem at the top.
How would you rate the popularity of your character when people see us as a group?
Toriel is, I would say, she is one of the most frequently cosplayed characters. If you ignore the humans, because they're so easy to do that anybody can almost do them with very little effort. The first character people will do in Undertale is Sans, and right after that's Toriel. People still feel strongly towards her because she's in the game this motherly, warm experience and this center of love, which overall in the game you get very little of. And also at the end of her very heartbreaking experience. So people feel pretty attached to her, I would say.
Yeah, I guess this is one of the interesting parts about cosplay if you're not into it, or if you haven't ever done it, that people tend to approach you as if you were the character.
Yeah.
And sometimes say things to you as if this was their chance to finally say something that's been on their mind the entire time.
Yeah, people totally do that, and I've always liked that about cosplay. Actually, I've always enjoyed this part of character interaction.
When people approach, we usually do our best. I have to say, like, from my perspective, people go to Papyrus and to you to express their friendship or their remorse at killing you.
Yeah, yeah, they do that.
And I'm still someone who maybe they wave to me carefully.
Yeah, they're intimidated.
That also helps my internal emotional state, of course. It's easy to play.
Yeah, out of me they mostly want hugs, so that's fine. Like, tutorial, they will usually come up like, "Good mom, I'm so sorry I killed you!" So I will hug them. They will probably be smaller than me, so I can rest my chin on their head and pet them and be like, "It's okay, I forgive you. Mom is there. You can now live with me forever. I'm gonna feed you pie and all is gonna be well." That's usually what I would tell people.
Is there, at this point, still a moment in the game that you remember very fondly or very badly?
Well, Tem Village was great. I think Tem Village was the moment I was really, really, really finally sold. As in, sold. I mean, Snowdin overall is a great experience. Like, I was already... The first moment for me, I think, knowing that this was something I would enjoy, was the stupid stuff with the rock in the very beginning. Like that talking rock that doesn't want to be pushed.
2 out of 3 rocks recommend you push them.
Yeah, That was the moment when I figured, okay, this is the kind of humor I can get into. But Temmie Village, like, sold me. Temmie Village showed me, like, okay, this is really, really worth mentioning. This is not just something you play and then forget. This is important. Like, if you create characters like this, there has to be more to it. I think instead of liking a character overall or just enjoying a big emotional moment, I love all the small stuff. Like, I love all the small bullshit, like Napster Bloog, and the mouse and the spaghetti thing. All that kind of stupid stuff that just takes you a moment to notice, and that you could often probably easily not understand or not pay enough attention to. I'm the kind of person, like, in this kind of game, I will walk over to anything to see if it says something interesting. And that is exactly what the game wants you to do at some, like, in Toriel's house or something. Experience every single stupid joke Toby Fox bothered making.
Because he always has something prepared.
Yeah.
But there's barely ever a moment where you try something out and the game isn't prepared for it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is overall what I loved, like this attention to detail. I'm trying to figure out what I mean right. There was something... Oh no, the telephone thing.
The wrong number song.
Wrong number song, yes. And that stupid, like, was it you? I don't know. Either someone sent something to me or someone, like, a video, and that was stuck in my ears forever. Like this.
I think we cut the wrong number song segment from our first episode. If we did, here's the wrong number song.
I need the lyrics, like, wrong number.
Oh, it's the wrong number song. We're very, very sorry that we got it wrong.
This is the wrong number song. I'm very, very sorry that we got it wrong.
Yeah, that's a YouTube version that someone made.
Yeah, okay, and that's what I've got stuck in my head.
Let me look that one up to give credit. It's by DM Dokuro, who's generally pretty good.
Oh, it's the wrong number song. We're very, very sorry that we got it wrong. Oh, it's the wrong number song. We're very, very sorry that we got it wrong.
Because of the whole, I think you already mentioned it, the special problem with alphas.
Oh, we can totally talk about the alphas problem.
Because the alphas problem is also something that most characters have. And Toriel and Escor, for example, also have it.
I remember there are like tutorials around here who have prosthetics for the nose and mouth region.
Yeah.
Which gives them a kind of rabbity look.
What look?
A rabbit-like look.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's very high effort, and it removes the options for expressing emotions a lot.
The thing is, as you are cosplaying characters that are goat-like but have also human features, overall in Undertale you're cosplaying human-like creatures that have furry features, you always encounter this problem, how much of a furry I want to be and how much of a human I want to be. And I went personally, as you can see in the pictures, for as human as possible, because for me, halfway furry is incredibly creepy. I think these nose-mouth prosthetics you mentioned earlier, I think they are high effort but very low payoff. I don't think they further the whole point of looking more like Toriel. Because, as you said, I mean, Toriel's supposed to be a goat, but they make you look rabbity, which, like, just can't be your goal if you're trying to cosplay a goat human. And this is, of course, also what you encounter with alphas, because either you go full human, and then with alphas you're not recognizable anymore, or that you go full dinosaur, which no one has ever done before, as far as I have researched the internet.
Yeah, even on the internet I haven't found one yet.
I mean, probably it has been done somewhere before, but not as far as I have seen. So you have this, as you already mentioned in episode 1 or 2, you have this alphas problem, as in there's this one character that you can't recognize at first, and then you realize, oh, it's an alphas. This is a person that is painted yellow and wears a lab coat. And often they're not even painted yellow, because people hate painting themselves. Which I'm very particular about, because I come from the Gaemmel and the Homestuck fandom, so painting myself in odd colors is kind of like what I do. And that just has become, I don't know. I feel like there will be many more fandoms in my life that require me to paint my skin in stupid colors. Like Steven Universe. I'm going around that with Pearl, but you could also do that, so it's just something that follows you. And I feel like I've seen all three kinds of things. Like people who go full human and not even paint themselves or anything. I've seen people in Tutorial, most people do the horns and the ears, just like I did. And then people who go full furry, like at least I've seen an Ezreal, and I think also a Toriel, who both had furry suit heads at least. And again, this is high effort, like incredibly high effort. I don't even want to know if they made them themselves and are just very good at it, or if they ordered them, because if they did, they probably spent lots of money. I'm not an expert, but people make them for you, custom, somewhere in America.
There's Germans too, but yeah, it's like in the €1,000 plus segment.
And again, I think those are very high effort, no matter if you do them themselves or money effort, and very low payoff, because I personally think they're creepy, and I personally think they take away all the human features that made the character approachable in the first place. Because when they come up to you, they're just these huge seeming creatures where you can't see eyes or mouth or facial expressions, which totally prohibits you from approaching the person behind the cosplay, and which will probably mean that you will get a lot of pictures and a lot of fame at the convention, but talk to hardly anybody at all, which is for me personally not what I am expecting when I go somewhere to have a nice convention for myself. I want interaction, I want people to talk to me.
If you're in a full fursuit, that's just a different kind of interaction level. You're just in a different category there. You just don't really feel like going up to them and saying what you feel about the character anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's the difference between a full fursuit Ezreal and just a trigender Pyrofox isn't as big. So if you approach someone in a full fursuit character, you're mostly approaching a furry and not that character.
Which brings us to the next part of Undertale fandom. I have never felt comfortable sounds like they're all creeps. They're not, but like Undertale inspired a new generation of furries. As in young people, underage people who discovered their furry identity through Undertale fandom. And I don't know, dear listener, if you have ever searched for Undertale porn on Archive.
Or if you have simply Googled the term Toriel with safe search off.
Yeah, it's like, go onto archiveofourOwn.org, and just search for Undertale and look at the explicit stuff. Or don't even look at the explicit stuff. Look at the recently published stuff. You will already find enough of what you're searching for. Because the Undertale fandom on Archive, I'm very sorry if I'm pissing someone off right now who's listening, is full of porn, and it's weird. It's weird porn. It's weird furry porn with weird alpha, beta, gamma, underfell, Flowey is making everyone pregnant dynamics. And it's okay if you enjoy that, but I have never felt comfortable in this environment. Because if you get a new fandom and you're a fanfiction writer like me, you will eventually search fanfiction sites for what the fandom is doing with the stuff. Like, what's the stuff people write about here? What, just to get inspired, to get a feeling like for what the fandom is like. And I did that, and I noped right the fuck back out because this is not what I want to do. Yeah. So I've never, like, Undertale has been a fandom where I have never engaged in internet fandom things, because it's just not my alley, what they're doing there. I mean, I'm okay with young people being furries, I just mean it has inspired a new generation, I think, of stuff that I personally don't get.
I should maybe say I am also not a part of the Undertale fandom, despite having at this point made a 5-hour podcast about the game.
Which is fandom-related activity, I would at least argue.
Yeah, but I don't have connections to other people. I wouldn't know where to go if I wanted to meet the still active leading people in Undertale fandom, I sometimes looked at the Reddit and was bored by it.
What do they do at the Reddit?
Just constructive fandom drawing art, mostly.
Oh, okay. So no meta stuff.
I would describe the stuff that I'm doing and that I'm doing right now as deconstructive fandom, which is looking at something, taking it apart, trying to explain why this is good or which part of it isn't, how it's interesting. Whereas typical normal fandom is more interested in individual characters and how they relate to each other and how you feel about them and creating works about this. That's the part I don't really have much to do with.
Or pushing the canon further, or going like, what if event X never happened?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm also not a furry, despite the picture of me that you've seen the entire time being an apparently female griffin. I think being a furry requires more than having your avatar be one, because I also don't have anything to do with the furry community. I appreciate the aesthetic.
Yeah, the furry aesthetic does nothing for me, but I'm boring. I like my characters human. Of course, I've played and very much enjoyed Undertale. I wouldn't care what they are, but in my opinion, as demographically, I would argue that the Undertale fandom consists out of young, female-dominated, queer youth.
Unlike what other fandom?
I don't know, and there's probably a huge overlap with Homestuck. At least I feel like there's a huge overlap with Homestuck people, because of the obvious reasons. Yeah, I don't know, I'm right now in a fandom that has not much more female than male readers and is pretty old compared to what I've been to before. So you think all fandoms are alike until you find one which doesn't fit in.
I wouldn't think that. I would say the one fandom I am an active member of is the SCP Wiki, which is mostly people with master's degrees and science writers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very specific kind of fandom.
Also very deconstructive.
Where you would also expect a very specific target group, of course, then. Yeah, but Undertale is your average, mostly girls, queer and young, active on Tumblr, an archive fandom. But definitely, populated by the weirder folks.
You're right, I totally forgot to mention, I think, that Undertale is a super Tumblr-y work.
Yeah, definitely.
There are just works that immediately scream, this is going on Tumblr.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are some that don't.
Yeah, definitely. The fandom I'm in right now, the webcomics Then Still Stay Silent, which I am a very active fandom part of right now, is Tumblr not completely incompatible with Tumblr, but definitely not the kind of stuff Tumblr would completely go crazy about. Because it just lacks certain aspects for that. It's not American-centric enough. I think that's an important part. Tumblr is American youth-centric. And because of course, I guess Toby is American?
You mean because of his sensibilities?
Yes. What does he find funny and what are his sensibilities towards what something has to look like? As in, we look at Japanese movies and think they're weirdly shot because they're used to a different experience than we are. And I think an Undertale is not American-centric, but it's made by an American for a Western view. And Then Still Stay Silent, for example, is made by a Finno-Swede. And that's just not the standard Western view. And not the standard Western way of letting a comic develop, for example. So it's not incompatible, but not completely compatible with Tumblr, for example.
My final question to close this is, in one word, how do you feel about Toriel sans shipping?
Unsatisfying.
Thank you. Okay, this is my second guest.
Hello.
This is Manu. I'm pretty sure that's the name you're going to go with, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Everywhere on my Tumblr, I'm Manu. On my Facebook, I'm Manu. I'm Manu everywhere. That's a blatant lie. Sadly not. I'm vastly different on everything.
So what did I get you for on this podcast?
Basically, I'm here just to talk about my general experience with the game. And also a little bit about Homestuck. I got there through the Homestuck fandom, basically.
Yeah, as far as I know, you are one of our preeminent experts on Homestuck, right?
Yes, I think I read it twice. I basically am at home in the wikis. I would say I know most of the things there are to know about Homestuck. Me and Jules are like the major Homestuck people.
Okay, how do you feel about this game 2 years after it's come out?
Oh, I feel very strongly about this game. Undertale is probably one of my top games ever, just because it's such a different game. I feel like the most different thing about Undertale is where its focus is. Most other games just have a story as an afterthought. If you think, I don't know, Zelda or Pokemon, there is a story, but you mostly skip it and you're annoyed by it. In Undertale, I feel like it's the other way around. Like, the important part is the story, and while the gameplay is good, it's nothing exceptional, but the story is really what I like about the game, what's really amazing, you know?
This totally reminds me, I recently saw a video by Folding Ideas, one of my favorite YouTube things, who talks about terribly overused term of ludonarrative dissonance.
Okay, what's that?
That's the basic term for the things you do in the game don't fit with what the game is pushing as a story. So, for example, Diablo 3, especially the expansion, where you are basically witnessing the apocalypse, like the end of the world. There are 100,000 people dying around you. Death is everywhere in the streets. But your experience as a player is mega kill. You got epic loot. Look at those numbers. Amazing. I think the most classic problem in our day and age is BioShock, where you can choose to be a nice person or an evil person within the story, but within the gameplay, you are still a mass murderer who just doesn't exploit some girls at some points.
Yeah, congrats on that.
Undertale, where you said it's an afterthought, I would say Undertale just doesn't have this dissonance because it's just the point, the story and the gameplay. Because they were made by one person, they just are entangled on a deep level, and you can't have one without the other. Makes sense.
I mean, definitely, and they're very good, well integrated, but I feel like it's not just that. I'll just use Pokemon because it's famous, whatever. You have the story and it's just kind of there, and it feels like it's there because games need a story. And you as a player don't really care about it. Sometimes the story is even seen as a hindrance because there's some area you can't explore and some NPCs go, I'm not gonna let you through, and then you have to talk with 500 people. And it just becomes this annoyance. And with Undertale, it's like talking to characters and getting to know what they think and getting to know what they feel, and even in fights talking with characters and getting to know how to mercy them is actually the draw to the game, if you ask me.
So your feelings about the game haven't aged?
Definitely not. I still feel very strongly about the game. I think I played it, I basically did the neutral run, then I felt horrible and did the pacifist run, and then I couldn't touch the game. This game is completely crazy. You think you're just playing some kind of video game, and then you're like, they are happy inside my computer. I can't ruin that for them.
I love that feeling resonates within others in our group without having talked about it with you, I think.
I feel like that's just, isn't that just general consensus at this point? I don't know. Emotion is a very good point, because that's also one of the main driving points. That this game is just so good at evoking your emotions. I don't know, from just genuine surprise about the shit that Flowey does, or genuine love for the characters, just being very sad or feeling very uncomfortable. It just manages to evoke all these different kinds of emotions, and all of that while looking completely shitty, if we're honest. It's just an 8-bit game that's about on it has basically late 80s graphic. I wouldn't even say it's not a pretty game, if you ask me, but still it manages to mess you up completely. There were generally moments where I'm just walking along some kind of rectangle and I'm thinking how's this such a top game? And then I get to some kind of fight and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's why. My first playthrough was a neutral run, so basically I killed everyone except Papyrus and some NPCs. Oh
yeah, I remember when people started playing and we all made very sure not to comment on how to do it. And we just, I think you mentioned that you were just defeating everyone, and we tried very hard not to say anything about it.
I'm very thankful for that because the game, it's just such a part of the experience at the end, like realizing, well, I'm an asshole mass murderer. I mean, that's just basically what is. But like about the Undyne fight, just to come back to that. As I said, I defeated everyone except Papyrus because it was obvious how to spare him. That you could spare him because you literally said, you can spare me. And just the Undyne fight, it just feels awesome playing it. And then like the section, like it gets harder and harder and harder and harder. And you're just in this kind of flow state. And then at some point she's defeated and she weakens. And she just continually gets weaker. And you're like, no, what's happening to Undyne? She's so strong. You've experienced how strong she is, how powerful she is. And then this power you have experienced is weakening. And she's like fading from existence. And that just, I think after that fight, I just closed the computer and I had to think for a while. That was such an intense experience because it's not just that the game tells you her power is weakening. It shows you how powerful Undyne is, how badass she is, how hard she can fuck you up, and then it takes that away and slowly, painfully, and you're almost like, come on, Undyne, you can do it. Let's fight another round. Yeah. And I mean at that point I was questioning myself. I still hadn't really realized that you can spare everyone. Because, as you touched in your earlier podcast, the beginning is very conflicting about that, in my opinion.
Did you continue killing after that?
I think I didn't actually change my behavior, no. Because I had like this fear that I have to grind or else the game will be too hard or something weird. I mean, I also killed Metaton, and then the scene afterwards where Alphys just stands there and is speechless, and I'm like, come on, he's just a machine. That can't be... What's wrong? And it just makes you feel so bad. Game just makes you feel so bad if you like kill the dudes.
Do you remember what your neutral ending narration was?
I think it was basically Papyrus took control and he's trying his best, but things are pretty grim and people are yeah. I'm a horrible person.
Since I got you on here as the expert on Homestuck, can you explain to me what Toby did on that multimedia story complex before he started becoming famous to people like me?
That's a very good description of Homestuck. Yeah, so Toby Fox, as far as I know, basically did a bunch of the music for Homestuck. It's very similar in style to the music in Undertale. It's kind of this very 8-bitty music that also like manages to carry a lot of emotion. Yeah, in Homestuck, he basically did a lot of music. The story goes that he basically programmed all of Undertale in Hussey's basement. Andrew Hussey's the guy who made Homestuck. So, in a way, Undertale is Homestuck's grandchild.
He was physically over there, or is that a metaphor?
The rumor goes that he was actually physically there.
So, he wasn't just one of like a dozen musicians, which, as far as I know, Homestuck does have like a dozen plus musicians?
Toby was one of the ones who contributed multiple albums to the soundtrack. So he definitely was one of the major guys.
I would actually like to ask about Megalovania, because I know he used it for Homestuck originally, or did he use it for the Earthbound Halloween game first?
So the story of Megalovania is that he made basically a ROM hack of Earthbound that he called Halloween Edition or something along those lines. And there actually Megalovania was the song for the final boss. Then Megalovania was used in Homestuck for like a major animation. And yeah, then Toby kind of retook it to Undertale. So that's the timeline there.
Do you think there is any internal reason within the story why this happened? Or is it, as I would assume, just that he knows this is the strongest song he has ever made for the most intense fight scenes?
I think it's basically that. On the one hand, a thing that Homestuck likes to do, and a thing that also happens in Undertale a lot, is that Homestuck likes to make a lot of nods at like pop culture things or have references to different stuff. And you'll also find some of that stuff in Undertale, so there's multiple like nods or references to Homestuck. So I think in one part it was just a reference to Homestuck in a way. But on the other hand, it was just like Toby was like, okay, I made this amazing boss fight song that's also in Homestuck, which is famous. So why don't I just use it again?
I always had like a bunch of thoughts about it, since like the name of the song basically implies this is the song of a very evil person, and we are hearing it in the game for Sans. So the go-to assumption would be that this isn't the song for Sans fight, which it already exists. It just doesn't happen in the game. It's just on the soundtrack CD. I think I haven't played it here. If I haven't, this is the song that might play if you fight Sans. Instead, this could be the song of you, the player character, at this point.
I hadn't thought about that. That's giving me chills. But yeah, that makes total sense. It's like, that's the point of the game where you're the evilest you can possibly be. That's actually very clever.
A second interpretation would be that this is just the song of the overall fight going on there. Because, like, Sans is the only character who also dodges you. So I would imagine if you were to play Sans, you would also be dodging player character attacks. So this might also just be the song for the fight between these exact people.
It might be, but I actually like the interpretation of this being actually the Kara fight song and not the Sans fight song. Because Sans is many things, but he's not a megalomaniac. He's
yeah.
I would say he's pretty far from a megalomaniac. Yeah, but it kind of makes sense if you think about, I think at Earthbound it was attributed to some kind of evil scientist, if I recall correctly, who's like obviously like a mad genius. And in Homestuck it was attributed to Vriska. Like, she's one of the good guys, but she's pretty nasty in the way she does, and she's pretty full of herself. So she's definitely a megalomaniac in that sense, and also doesn't hesitate to kill and stuff.
I thought about build-up for a while. Build-up to joke, build-up to dramatic moments. We get a new friend and we try to convince them that Undertale is great, but they haven't played it. And we just bring out like the core moments. We explain who the characters are, and then we say, and in the end they all defeat the final boss by how much they like each other, and he can't stand it, and he just gives up and they get out into the open world. Like, that's a terrible story.
It's absolutely horrible.
The same thing, like, for typical jokes, standard old-fashioned jokes have like this repetition factor in it, where someone tries something and you don't understand why, and then he tries it again in a minor variation, you don't understand why, and then in the end you finally have this shift of perspective to understand, oh, that's the joke, yeah, that's build-up of tension, that's important.
It's so weird because concerning the ending of the True Pacifist run you just mentioned, if you look at it in a vacuum, it's just such a cheesy moment. They defeat him by friendship.
Yeah.
And what makes this ending so awesome is like that you've known these characters and that you kind of now get to see their dark sides, which for a character like Papyrus is so weird because he's so positive all the time. And like everything is context with that fight.
Yeah, and my Undertale thought is this never happens experience. Like in games, things like this haven't happened before, that you have multiple times in Undertale. Like the game just suddenly becomes a horror game. That's Like, maybe that happened in Thief. The part where the game mechanics of saving and loading just become canon, people just start using it against you. Flowey uses it against you. Imagine if the game started by doing that. Like, that's just a gimmick now. That's just a Portal-like gimmick.
Yeah, that's the thing. That now that you mentioned Portal, and okay, no, scratch that. I was going nowhere with that.
I'm just proud at this point that we managed to shit on both Mass Effect and Portal massively with just offhand comments.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Portal is an amazing game. A short, very amazing game. But I have no investment for the main character of Portal. It's just a puzzle game. It's just a thing you do. It's not this kind of experience. It works on an entirely different level. I would argue that
there's a video talking about Bravely Default's music, Final Fantasy game for 3DS, and I completely failed to find it during the recording. The name is Bravely Default's Empowering Music by GameScore Fanfare, where each character has a theme that plays during fights when you activate basically their ultimate abilities. And for as long as the theme plays, they have a massive stat buff. So over the game you just get really used to keeping the music on, because that's the only indicator for how long your characters are still strong, and you want to chain those effects, because if the next character's theme starts playing before the first one is over, those effects roll over. Every character has their own instrument too. You get an almost Pavlovian reaction to those songs, and during the final boss fight, which, to be honest, it's a Final Fantasy style boss fight, like it's just a big monster you haven't actually seen before and that has completely chaotic motivations. Like Final Fantasy bosses have the most nonsensical motivations ever. It's a very long theme, and during the final phase it just suddenly starts playing your character themes in a remixed version that creates an emotional point in an otherwise, I would say, hysterically bad story. A story about people who keep doing the same mistakes despite explicitly saying that they know better. But let me link that moment in the song to you just so you can hear it.
Okay, I totally see what you mean. That's pretty sweet. But to kind of add to your point of build-up, I imagine it's way sweeter if you actually know the character themes.
Actually, I did this without showing you those themes. Like, I could have edited in the YouTube version of that guy easily and explained it, like, with a build-up. Like, he takes about 6 minutes to explain this point. And I decided to show it to you without explaining what the character themes are. You still managed to identify them, I guess. Like, there's 4 characters, and then there's the overall theme playing at the end where they are all together. And each one has their main instrument. And when I listen to this, as I just have, I get chills over my body. And I guess you were like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And that's why I brought up build up first, and then showed you this. To have a perfect example right here. And I guess Undertale is one of those cases that becomes irreducible at some point. But since you are already my music expert, I also just want to mention here the amazingness of the overall Undertale music as maybe an album. Because Undertale, I think it has like 21 actual leitmotif songs. Like deeply different songs. It still has like 60 or more actual songs. They are just variations of one theme, like of a character theme, or they are mixing up different songs within the game. Many of them are sped up or slowed down, sometimes significantly slowed down. Like, I'm sure you know that the theme of the Waterfall Zone is the theme of fighting Undyne.
But about the themes, I like how it's sometimes used to connect characters. If I recall correctly, Dummy and Napsterblue basically is the same song, only remixed. And I like how, because those characters actually know each other. They're actually friends. And they're actually both ghosts. And I like how that connects them. What I then don't understand is why fucking Muffet has the same theme. I mean, there's no real connection.
I think in this case, the reason is that Napsterblue made that song for her. I think that's the reason.
Is that actually canon?
He is someone who makes music within the game, so why would he not make character themes?
And this is definitely a game where the characters would make their own theme songs. I mean, it's actually implied now that you think about it, because it actually says at some point during the fight that the spiders dance to the song. So the song actually exists. It's not just an abstraction.
Oh yes, we cracked the code. What also happens is every character has their own food, which they make. Did you notice that before?
No, what?
Every major character has their own song and their own food. Both reflect on their personality.
What the fuck is Sans food? Ketchup?
Sans makes hot dogs.
Yeah, Papyrus makes spaghetti.
Yeah, let's go through that list quickly.
Oh yeah.
Toriel makes cakes, which are very loving and a motherly thing for her.
Sometimes butterscotch, sometimes cinnamon, most of the time both.
Papyrus makes very bad spaghetti because he's just a very bad cook. By the way, I guess he's a bad cook because he's a skeleton and he can't eat. But I don't know that for certain.
I mean, he actually learned cooking from Undyne, who should be able to taste. But I guess it's kind of hard to make good food when you have no idea what it tastes like.
Undyne, on the other hand, also makes spaghetti. Just she completely ruins not only the food, but also the entire house because she's so passionate about it. Which also, in-game, she says, explains why Papyrus is so bad at cooking still, despite having a teacher. Sans makes hot dogs, which you can buy in Hotland at one point. He sells them to you, and they are normal consumables. If you buy more than your inventory can fit, then he just puts them on your head, on the model.
Yeah, I noticed.
He puts up to 28 hot dogs on your head for free. At that point, if you ask for any more, he says, no, any more would be ridiculous, and I can't reach that high. You just have them stacked on your head, and if you move a little, they fall off. Hot dogs are very easy to make. Like, as far as we can tell, he doesn't even make the bun or put anything on it. He just takes it, puts it in hot water, I guess.
In one of the first hot dog stands in Snowland, it actually says that there's a relish and stuff. So he's putting a little bit of effort into it.
Alphys has instant noodles in her home, because that's both a nerd and a Japanese kind of thing. Asgore makes tea. By the way, he is very good with flowers. His wife isn't. Asgore's home is full of flowers. Toriel's home has like a dead tree in front. They just fit together. Metaton is famous for his human soul requiring meals. Like, he has a cooking show that also include chainsaws.
I think they make cake on that show, right?
Metaton does this giant fancy birthday cake. He does it in a showy and show-offy way. Muffet, she of course makes spider baked goods.
Donuts and muffins.
And Asriel and Kara tried to make butterscotch pie, but instead of putting in some cups of butter, they put in buttercups instead.
That actually reminds me, I also butchered a recipe at one point. I was making cupcakes, and the recipe said 1.5 cups of flour. It was basically written as 1 space 1-2. So I read 11.5 cups of flour. So I put in 5.5 cups of flour instead of 1.5. They were terrible.
You didn't at some point think, hey, Hey, wait, hey.
I had no idea of baking, and I still don't have. I probably would make the same mistake today.
I think we have now actually extracted all your expertise on this game for this podcast's context, and we can safely end the recording.
I think I've said most of the stuff I can say.
Glad to have had you here.
I was glad for being here.
And now we are going on to commercials.
Bye.
And here's my last guest. This is Martin. He's one of our Sans players. And we talk about genocide, my favorite fan theory, and I bring up a lot of further sources if you still want to look at more Undertale stuff.
Okay, I did it. How do we start? How do we start this off? Do you want to say something? Should I say something?
Yeah, well, you are my third guest. As far as I know, you are my last guest as well.
Okay.
We are probably on the home stretch of recording all of Undertalk. And as far as I know, you are my expert for a second opinion on genocide.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was just gonna basically talk about my experience with the genocide run, because I think it's kind of unique.
So what would you like to tell us about genocide?
Just my experience, I guess. I'll go through the whole thing, and then... Okay, I have to preface this. Basically, I hadn't heard anything about it. Just the big meme, do you want to have a bad time? So that's all I knew going into it. I knew you'd have to kill every monster to proceed. So I went in there with the mindset that I would have to fight every boss. Okay, so the first boss you go against is Toriel. And I was really going to, okay, we're gonna have a big fight, gonna defeat Toriel here. And then she dies in one hit. And I was very, very surprised and shocked that she just dies in one hit with like a really big damage number 2. I was like, okay, so this is the kind of run this is going to be, I guess. And then, yeah, it's really sad and kind of horrifying that you kill her so hard. And yeah, I was like, okay, so I guess the only real enemy in this run is Sans then? ? Because that's gotta be where you want to have a bad time comes from, right? Oh, also, by the way, I don't know if you mentioned it, but do you know about betrayal kills?
Being nice to someone until they're ready to be mercied and then killing them?
Yes. I
Yeah.
did that one later, on a later run, and it's... Holy shit, that shit is really evil. Like, especially on Toriel. That...
It's the worst, yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have brought that up now. Okay, well, let's move on then. Again, has been kind of a long time ago, but I think Papyrus spares you immediately after you basically just walk through all of his traps. And then Sans says, you want to have bedtime. And then you go like, oh, he said the thing that everybody's memeing about real hard. I don't know, this kill didn't really hit me that hard, because it was kind of like, yeah, okay, I bet I'm gonna one-hit this guy again, and sure enough, you totally do, and his head pops off, which is kind of macabre. You know, he believes in you till the very end, like the gullible, lovingly doofus he is. And yeah, and then you smash his head to pieces. And I think that's the last time Sans appears as well, right?
Yeah, Sans just leaves.
Until way later, when you actually do have the bad time. Yeah, then you get to the point where you attack the monster kid because it's in your way. And then Undyne jumps in front of him, and I was like, holy shit, okay. I guess this is a thing now. And I actually thought maybe Undyne is gonna be a real fight, because she's kind of badass, and you haven't really seen her fight that much in the other runs. And then she dies in one hit, and I was like, whoa, holy shit, even Undyne, huh? But then she reforms with her determination found inside of herself, which is cool, which is really awesome. I guess you could say I was thoroughly japed. I'm sorry. I wrote that down, I just had to put it in here somewhere. When she turns in her determined form, yes. And the music is obviously top shelf, all the way up there. And it makes you feel bad for fighting the actual hero, and you are now the bad guy. Which you were before too, but now you actually feel like you are fighting the protagonist of a game. and you are the fucking evil guy. And that's also reflected in the dialogue when Undyne says, yes, she has to save basically the world, or the underground, I guess, from you. And shush, that's really hard. It was actually so hard that I almost gave up. I used like all my healing items, but the music is good, so it kept me going. And yeah, big sad ending when she melts into a puddle, but she's cool about it and she's fucking amazing. Made me like Undyne a lot more, actually.
She's cool about it.
Yeah, she is. Shut up. She's really cool about it. She dies with a grin on her face. She's like, yeah, the others are already gone. Fuck you. And Asgore's gonna absorb the souls. He's a cool guy. He's gonna beat you. Yeah, then we get to fucking Hotland, which is like, I think the one thing that the one thing I remember about Hotland was Thunderplane crashes extremely loudly when she dies. And it's really spooked me a lot. But I guess that's everything that was really memorable. Then you come to my third big surprise moment against Mettaton Neo, who's fucking amazing and has amazing music, even though it's just like a 10-second loop of the same thing, but I could listen to that shit for hours. And I was like, holy shit, here's the second real big fight, and then he dies in one hit. And holy shit. I think this is kind of well done, because the Genocide run keeps playing with your expectations like that. It keeps you on your toes about how to feel about the bosses, I guess. Yeah, and then we finally get to the big bad time, and it's Sans. And holy shit, this fight. Sheesh. I strongly considered giving up many times, because I thought it was not worth it to keep going. Like, Sans actually broke my spirit. And then eventually, I actually gave up. I was like, well, this is not worth it. I feel way too bad about all of this. Sans is kicking my ass into next week. And I'm like, well, this can't go on. You win. Sans wins. And I gave up, turned off the game. And I was like, I felt bad for giving up, but I felt good for not going through with it, you know?
Oh, I didn't expect this ending.
That's actually what happened. I mean, yeah, I was like, yeah, Sans, you win. You totally win. You beat me. You stopped the fucking monster. Everyone else is dead except you and Asgore, I guess, and Flowey is also still alive, and yeah, I gave up, and that was the end of that. And yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a rare path.
I don't know, this I'm gonna get a little bit weird now, because the end, when Sans uses his special attack, he says something that's like, to summarize my feelings about a lot of things on the internet, I have to say, add to this, that I'm not a big fan of theories. But I mostly am like, well, this is a load of bullshit. Eventually, some of them are true, and then I'm like, well, I'm eating my own words. And for example, I don't believe that Gaster is anything more than a hidden guy who's specifically made so people can spin theories about him and who he was and have something to go on that keeps them going about the game, even when they're done playing it.
Gaster. Maybe just some guy put in there so you can think up random stuff and find reasons for why it's true in the game. But that's just a theory. A game theory.
But that's not something a game theory video would say, because in the game theory video is obviously why Sans is a human and why he is Ness from Earthbound and
he's the left brain.
Oh, go fuck off. I mean, that's kind of like the extreme spectrum of theories. There's obviously good theories out there, but I'm always very, very skeptical.
Let me interrupt this again just to show you a YouTube segment from H-Bomber Guy.
Yes, please.
This segment is from the video Lisa the Analysis.
If you wanted to, for easy clicks, there are some games you can invent reasons to talk about if you need to. The game's story and themes are loose and friendly and open enough that you can reapply the critical lens over and over and always have a new, somewhat facile element to explore for an audience. You can speculate for all time about some games if they have certain features that make it easy to do so. You could even do a needlessly in-depth analysis of one character's relationship with anime.
No, wait, that one was mine, wasn't it?
H-Bomber Guy also super highly recommended, especially every single one of his videos.
Yeah, definitely agree. I don't know. Well, back to the point. During Sans' special attack, he says something that really resonated very deeply with me. I still think about it to this day, like randomly. You never give up, even if there's absolutely no benefit of persevering whatsoever. If I can make that clear, no matter what, you'll just keep going. Not out of any desire for good or evil, but just because you think you can. And because you can, you have to. That's kind of the thing that really put everything into perspective to me, because I kept feeling bad and kept being like, oh, I don't want to do this is so evil, but I always justified it with, I have to do it. I also saw on streams later, like when all this was over, I watched someone stream the Genocide Run, and she got really, really sad about fighting Undyne, and she was like, but Undyne, I have to do it. And then I'm always like, why do you have to do it? Imagine someone comes up to you and they start stabbing you out of nowhere, and you say, why are you doing this? And they literally only say, I have to. And that's their only reason for doing this. I don't know, this blows my mind still to this day. That because you can do it, because this video game says, yeah, you can totally go and kill everyone, you somehow get it into your mind that you have to do it once you decide to do it, and that stopping is not an option. I guess it's kind of a part of determination. I think it's cool that Toby Fox thought ahead so far. I don't know, really, really hit me, where it actually hurts me, and where I actually have to think about myself and my actions, that I just give so little fucks about all these characters because it's just a video game. That I just go there and can justify killing everyone with, I have to do it. That's kind of the big, I guess, emotional thing for me. I definitely looked at myself from a different perspective at that moment.
In the last recording with Manu, I brought up Folding Ideas, who did an episode on ludonarrative dissonance. For our listeners, I can now just continue with them knowing that part already, because he then did another video about intended play, which is the expert term for a game puts something in where the game tells you not to do it, but it's still a part of the game. It's coded into it. There's actual gameplay there. In basically all the games, it's just trickery. The game knows that you're actually going to do it. Like, he talks about this for 8.5 minutes, and the final words in this episode, I'm just going to cut them in over what I'm saying now.
So what do you think? What's your favorite moment in a game where it tells you not to do something that it ultimately intends for you to do, and why is it the genocide route in Undertale? Let me know in the comments.
Yes, definitely.
He never brings up Undertale in this video before that point, but it's looming over the entire video. And I guess, like, genocide, the amazing thing about it is, unlike the Dark Souls intended play or the Stanley Parable intended play, where the game says you go through the left door, but if you go through the right, half of the game is still there. In this case, I still think that genocide is a thing that's meant to be played. Like, Toby isn't sitting at home and like, oh fuck, why are people playing? I told them not to do it. In Undertale, like, this is really close to letting you just do a thing that's in your personal experience actually evil, and not playing it or aborting play. I guess that's both an actual ending of the game, and it's also like the moral choice.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's also what I was kind of sad about, that I didn't really have closure for giving up when I gave up against Sans. I mean, how would I? I mean, I turned off the game. What is the game gonna do? Like, pop back up and say thanks for not doing it? But yes, I think it's definitely an ending. I think not coming back is something that ends, or not doing it even at all. Yeah, it's totally part of the game, is to not do it or to stop doing it. I don't know, maybe I would have appreciated something like when I open it back up in, like, I don't know, a month after I gave up against Sans, and it says like, wow, you actually didn't come back. Wow, thanks. I hope you're not trying to come back now, because it's been a while, so I don't know, that would have been cool. Like, I mean, you talked about Stanley Parable. I think it does something like that. It has the thing where if you don't play Stanley Parable for like 5 years, you get an achievement?
There's also a comment on this video that mentions Spec Ops The Line. I would also like to shortly mention Spec Ops The Line. It's also a basic shooty game where in the end it turns out that you were just basically a war criminal, and that all this, like, if a normal shooty game player plays it, he'll probably just think there's some weird small hallucinations, but if you think back on it, you are just actually one of the worst possible people.
Jesus, I gotta play that game. It's on sale so many times. It's like $5. I should actually play that game finally.
And the amazing thing about Spec Ops: The Line is that when they did marketing for it, they never mentioned this part. Like, they just sold it like a basic, look at our sand engine game, isn't this amazing? It's totally basic. Sand engine not relevant for the game. They never broke character and said, by the way, this is totally meta.
Dang, that's cool. It's awesome. Back to Undertale, I guess. You can't beat that when Sans walks off screen, bleeds his ketchup, and then just dies and turns into fucking dust, and then you level up, and that's it. And everything after that is just, it doesn't have really any impact anymore after you come from this. Like, your head is in a way different place. I mean, yes, Asgore dying is fucking garbage, but he dies too because it's a genocide run. And so does Flowey eventually, and then Chara appears, and whatever. I don't even care what Chara is. Fucking demon thing. Like, who cares anyway? People care, I guess. I don't.
So I'm really glad that you were like, I don't care about over-analyzing things, and I have no interest in Kara, because this is the point I've been hoping to get to the entire time.
Really?
Because I have a huge pet theory that I would like to present to you. I didn't make this. The source for this, if you Google a character analysis Undertale, the first result, it's by a Tumblr account called Determinators, and it is like 10,000 words long, probably.
Yeah, here it is.
I think this is the best Undertale theory that exists. Unlike Sans is Ness, this one has some actual weight behind it.
Sure, hit me.
So there are two main points that this analysis makes. The first one is the narrator is Kara.
Okay.
And there's like a bunch of major points. A personal but omniscient narrator. Like, this narrator knows what's in your head, what you are feeling. They only know what's around you. They can only see and hear what you see and hear. But they have opinions and they have some knowledge. The best examples that this game gives, when you're in the goat homes, the narrator says his bed, or this is a bed. Like, his bed, that's Asgore's bed.
Does it do that all the time, or just in a genocide?
No, this is normal narration.
Really?
There's also, of course, the famous moment where in any normal playthrough, you look into the mirror in New Home.
Yeah.
And it says, it's still just you. And if you play Genocide and look into the mirror,
it's me, yeah.
Kara.
Jesus. So, I guess that implies, yeah, it does make some extent of sense, sure.
In Toriel's home, there's like a plant, and if you look at it, the narrator says, you've seen this before, but you don't know the name. But there's a book in the house where you can read up on this exact plant, and you find out the name, and when you go back to that plant, the narrator says, oh, it's a water sausage. So the narrator can learn things, and only knows things that you do. Also, the narrator is into flowers. There's this bowl of candy in the ruins section, and it says, take one. If you take more, it says disgusting.
Why would Chara say that?
Because Kara is someone who is really into taking responsibility for her actions and doing the right things.
Okay, sure, go ahead, because that doesn't sound like Kara to me.
Yeah, exactly. The narrator always makes fun of fight menu, because all the items are renamed. You know, the butterscotch pie is abbreviated to Butts Pie.
Yeah, sure.
Spider donut is Spider Don't.
Yeah, okay.
Stuff like that. But whenever you fight Toriel, Asriel, or Asgore, the game goes into what this analysis calls serious mode, where all those jokes are removed, and it just says Spider Donut or Pie.
I thought that was genocide specific.
No, that's in all the goat fights. The narrator overall is pretty silent in those fights. The interface, of course, also lists the name of Kara and not Frisk. So basically the battle interface is Kara's interface, and the level up means that Kara levels up and not you.
Oh, right. Yeah, because why would it say your name? Because that's not your name. Your name's Frisk. Yeah.
The narrator, of course, knows Asriel's name. The narrator loves golden flowers. I guess then there's the whole thing about fighting Asriel. Like, when Asriel appears, you get this ridiculous, over-the-top final boss name
reveal. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is totally terrible.
No, it's good. Shut up.
And the narrator knows all the names of the attacks that are going to come up. Like the entire time, the narration in that fight is just emotionally in all caps, because Asriel is the shitty deviant art OC.
Yes, exactly. They made them up. They made up Asriel Dreamer. Yeah, totally. Yeah, they have like fucking, what's it called? Like Falling Star and Mega Buster Blast Cannon and then all that bullshit. So the narrator gets super hype about this whole fight. Because, yeah, it's my fucking OC!
I guess this might either be Asriel's OC and Kara had one themselves, or this is what they imagined it would be like when Asriel absorbs Kara's soul and they are just together. Accepting this interpretation makes Asriel's fight so much better for me. I love the idea that while you're fighting, there's this small voice in the back of your head who can see over your shoulder and into your mind, who's the entire time, oh boy, look at this!
Oh, he's charging the blaster again! That's pretty good, yeah. I don't know, I actually have to... I don't know, I never pick up on stuff like that. I actually thought Asriel's Asriel Dreamer is kind of like an imposing, cool, in air quotes, character design. But looking back on it now, it's really fucking edgy. Holy shit. Honestly, I think the attacks are kind of cool. If not a huge edgy DeviantArt OC would throw them at me, I would think, yeah, these are cool. Like a big falling star that splits up and it makes a cool noise, and the blaster blasts you with rainbow stuff. I think it's cool. Fight me.
It's just not evil. All those attacks, those aren't good evil final boss attacks. That's if you're 10 or 12 and you have a really cool idea for what you would like to be if you were all powerful. When I step into the elevator after the true lab and you're going up to finally meet Asgore again, the elevator just closes and the narration goes into a mode that it never had before, which is very slow. The letters appear very slowly. The narration just goes, it's a voice you have never heard before.
Oh yeah, that one, okay.
Because, supposedly, the narrator first hears Asriel's actual voice, and they know. You don't know, but they know. I love this moment under this interpretation. The narrator is full on shocked and excited that Asriel is still alive.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. This whole narrator is Kara theory. But this seems kind of intentional, you know? Okay, so this is a theory where I'm yeah, okay, you have enough supporting evidence, it makes sense. And it doesn't totally feel like you pull this out of your ass. It doesn't really change a lot about your experience of the game. It's just kind of neat.
Yeah, that's the first half.
Oh, okay, so there's more. Okay, sure.
If you agree with this first part, then there's a lot of indications about what kind of person Kara was back then.
Okay.
Because, of course, everyone liked Kara. Nobody remembers Kara as this kid that kept stabbing everyone constantly.
Yeah.
That was about to take control of the land.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this, where this is gonna go, but I might be wrong. But go ahead.
When you talk to Asgore, he's reminded of that human that fell long ago.
Yeah.
And he says you have the same feeling of hope in your eyes.
Oh, okay.
They adopted Kara, of course, so that must have been a nice kid.
Yeah, right, must have been. Except if the kid was the biggest, fattest liar ever.
Kara has a self-drawn picture of, I think, a golden flower. As far as we can tell, Kara just was a kid who really liked flowers, liked responsibility, standing up for your actions.
Yeah.
We can't really tell why Kara died. The idea is probably that they had a shitty plan. I guess the plan was to form Asriel Dreamer final boss form, go out and take revenge.
Yes.
For whatever the other humans did that made Kara even fall down the hole. We have to assume that the world outside is pretty shitty if repeatedly children go up the mountain and fall into the hole that, as far as they know, means they will die. And then there's, of course, the problem that in basically everyone else's interpretation, Kara is this soulless murder doll that has this smile on their face and is ready to destroy everyone.
Yeah.
Because that's the only time we actually meet Kara. But there's this moment in genocide where the narrator says, "At first I was so confused. Why was I brought back to life? You. With your guidance, I realized the purpose of my reincarnation."
Oh.
Because what Kara does is Kara somehow sticks to you, to your soul, because you both are determination type humans.
Yeah, you're both red.
I guess Kara just sits there, just observes. Like, they can't really do much anyways, and I guess they are ready to just look what you're going to do. Kara learns from your actions with your guidance, and if you are just doing a neutral or pacifist run, they basically learn from your actions that you can go through that. But if you actually go for the genocide path, then Kara learns that killing is the right way. And Kara, like, this is not what they were like as a living human, but this is what they learn from you, and they learn how to betray everyone. And the reason that in the end they destroy everything is not just because they are into that now, but also because you've gone so far, so we have to take responsibility, we have to go through with it. And you can't just say, "Oh no, yeah, I wanted to kill everyone, I wanted to kill Sans, but let's not go through with it. This is enough.
Oh.
Let's just do a genocide. Let's not destroy the entire reality."
So basically, I think this ties pretty well into what I said, or I guess what Sans said with "now I have to," that Kara actually adopts this mindset and then says, "Well, I have to do it now, let's keep going."
Yeah, I think so. I think even, like, in this worst version of Kara that you actually meet in the game, the only one you actually meet, they are still someone who insists on taking responsibility for your actions. And if you do this waiting in the void for 10 minutes bit, and they ask you if you want to restore reality, they are even then still like, you can't just do that. You have to stand up for your actions. You have to face what you've done.
Okay, I can see that. But what's the point of that, of saying that? I mean, okay, so we have established that Chara is very responsible in everything they do. But where to go from there?
I guess there's like a two-part result that we have if we accept both of those claims. Kara is the narrator and Kara is not actually an evil person. First, we have basically redeemed a character and we have added a new likable person to the roster of characters who is always with you as the narrator. And I guess playing the game again and assuming that the narrator is your friend who's on your shoulder, just that strengthens my experience and made me much more willing to check all the things that the narrator might say, and I've already been very much into them.
Oh yeah.
And the other thing is, people have this tendency to push away their responsibility for the genocide run. It hasn't come through in our talks a lot, because I guess we are responsible adults who murder and then say that we did it.
Yes.
But
oh, I did that, I don't care.
Like, there are a lot of people, I've met them, we are cosplayers, we meet a lot of people who play Kara, who are basically pushing the responsibility for all of this on that character and saying everyone dies because Kara does it.
Oh my god, you're totally right. They totally all say
because they are taking control.
Yeah, it was then Kara kills them all, and then they don't even acknowledge that they pushed all the buttons that killed them all, you know? Yeah, it's pretty cool. And if you're one of those people who blames Chara for killing all the monsters in the underground, take a good hard look at yourself. 'Cause that's you, suckers!
This is the important second step in this. Divorcing Frisk, the physical body that's walking around in the game. You, who are taking control and, as Sans calls it, the anomaly.
Yes.
Because Sans can't really detect what's actually there, like we can't detect what's before the Big Bang right now. And then there's Kara, who is the narrator and is listening and in the last moments takes control. Like, now we are not a duality, but we are now a trinity.
Oh.
And when Kara shows up and talks to the screen, Kara talks to you, not to Frisk.
It's true, but it also, I don't know, I mean, this makes sense and I'm kind of on board with this, but also this takes like a lot of agency away from Frisk, which makes Frisk basically just a host body and nothing else.
Yeah, I guess in a way it makes Frisk a less active part, because we can't see much of that. Like, the game doesn't have almost any animations for Frisk, but we know that Frisk does things on their own. Like, when you give an act order, then Frisk still does what they want. If you tell them to tell a joke, then Frisk decides what joke it is.
Oh, sheesh. No, but you're kind of like the thing that gives advice, or no, the thing that gives instructions. Then Frisk is the one that plays out these instructions, and Kara, I guess, is the one that narrates to us how that turned out. That is weird.
But that's just a theory.
Yeah. I insist that we now put this in because Kara tells us what Frisk does, right? But how do we communicate what Frisk should do? I tell you how. We do that with the keyboard. So the keyboard is the fourth part in this trinity, which makes it
a quadrilogy.
A quadrilogy, yes. So the keyboard is also part of this theory now. So there you go. That one's for free.
Also, now we'd like to put in a word from our sponsor, Nerdcrate.
There you go.
I'm really glad that when you asked, okay, if we accept this, what's the point? I made one point that was like, okay, and the other one made you go, wow, okay, I really see the point of this now.
Yeah.
I really love this whole theory.
It's good, definitely. It's way less bullshit than what I usually read when I read theories. Big kudos. Is there anything else to this one?
It is much longer, and I really recommend you look at it, like both you and the listener.
Yeah, sure.
It's super fun. But those are like the central points of this theory. There's an artist called Bunny-chan. Like they did very good videos. I like this video for both keeping Kara completely gender unspecific while also making them like anime quality, high resolution human-y.
The day Undertale finally became anime. Okay, so yeah, I subscribe to this theory that Chara is the narrator, even though it takes a bit of agency away from Frisk, even though not a lot. Oh, I have actually an addition to like part 2, where you talk about the ending of the neutral run, I think.
Yeah.
Because I've basically written down my one favorite moment here, which is the fight against Asgore in the neutral run, because that fight is amazing. Like, when the game says goat monsters are boss monsters, I'm like, okay, sure, but they're not cool and awesome. But then Asgore's like, holy shit, he's cool and awesome. The battle itself is cool. It brings back Toriel stuff. It brings the blue and orange stuff back. And it's challenging. I totally did not first try that stuff. And yes, he destroys the mercy button, and I was completely stumped as to what I should do. Like, I completely refused to even attack. I kept talking, which is a good thing to do because it lowers all his attack and defense. I actually was not sure what to do. Like, at this point, I kind of got into the mindset of this game, like, do weird stuff to win. And I was like, okay, maybe I just have to stand here for like 10 minutes and do literally nothing. And then he will stop fighting me or say, like, why are you not fighting? And I actually sat there for like 15 minutes or so and just waited for something to save me from having to fight this guy. And I don't know, that is kind of the other thing that left an impression with me, like this whole fight. Yes, I actually brought the cake to him. You said in your episode, you said that not many people probably brought the cake, and I totally did, because I'm that asshole who keeps all the healing items to the end of the game. And yeah, I was like, oh my god, I have the pie. Maybe the pie, that's like, I think at that point, yeah, you know that Toriel is the queen and he is the king, yeah, sure. I was like, yeah, the pie would totally save me from this one. And then you eat the pie and it's like really sad and his defense drops even further and I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Oof, that's heavy, that's some heavy shit. Like, he's definitely best fight in the game. This one's the best. By a landslide.
And I didn't even need to ask you to bring up some cool favorite moments for the ending of this interview.
Yeah, because I did it myself, because you already told me to bring favorite moments, and I'm a good guy who prepares for everything. And that's how we get 1 hour and 38 minutes of podcast. Wow, I didn't think we could fill that much time, even though we bullshitted around a lot, so this will probably be cut down to like 5 minutes.
My prediction is this is going to be 30 minutes, our segment.
That obviously means I win, and I'm the best guest.
Yeah, you're also going to be the last one, so I haven't recorded the last bit after this yet, but I guess we're just going to go back to Jules and me now and reminiscing about the past months of recording this and giving our final words.
Yay! Okay, bye!
Goodbye! So now we are out of podcast. I've run out. This has taken about 4 months of real world time, mostly due to scheduling. Making each minute of this podcast has taken about 7 or 10 minutes of work in total, but I love working with audio. It's very malleable. And I'm really glad we got all of this out now. I'm never fully pleased, of course. We could have talked about a lot of stuff, like about the backlash against the game, because you really need to be in the right and unspoiled mind to enjoy this game, and much more than about many other games.
That's true. Yeah, totally.
We could also have talked about how expertly Toby Fox foresaw people using hacks and trickery to play around in the game, because I guess that's what he's been doing his entire life.
I mean, of course, like his fame started with Earthbound hacks, so yeah.
You can even sell the annoying dog in Tem Village for 5,000 gold if you cheat him into your inventory.
That's amazing. That's very good.
We could also have talked about how Metaton is literally a ghost in the shell.
Oh yeah. That's also fun info, which we will not get into because the podcasts plural are long enough as they are. So you might want to Google that if you are interested.
We could have talked about all of this, but we don't. So now it's time for the last audio credits ever. Today we used DM Dokuro's Wrong Number Song and Reality Check Through the Skull. We used Toby Homestuck songs in this order: Hate You, Black, Descent, Umbrella Ultimatum, Hate You Again, and Homestuck's version of Megalovania. There was Spider Swing by the YouTube user Zephyr Dugoon. We used Bravely Default's character themes and a live concert version of Serpent Eating the Horizon. There was a quote from H-Bomber Guy's Lisa the Analysis, and Folding Ideas, The Stanley Parable, Dark Souls, and Intended Play. I'm done here now. I'm really happy we finished all of this. Please send all dating requests and pizza rolls to my Twitter, @Vitaro, and otherwise just spend a productive life without hurting people.
Goodbye, bye-bye, bye-bye. Love you.
Jules, Homestuck Podcast. When?
Oh boy. Oh God.
What are next? What are next?